Hello, and thank you. Good day, everyone. I get the pleasure of introducing this wonderful person next to me. This is Jessica Santiago Byrd. She's our country multicultural marketing and communications manager. And I had the pleasure of meeting Jessica a few years ago. And the way I instantly connected with her, her authenticity, she's truly an inspiration within our organization. She's highly regarded, and everyone being seconds with her leaves with a smile, an uplifted spirit, feeling that they can conquer the world because she has such passion and knowledge and expertise within her field.
Thank you, Ciannie. That's so kind, beautiful words. And good afternoon, everybody. I'm here and I have the pleasure to introduce Ciannie Rodriguez. And Ciannie leads, is our country ED&I, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion leader for the US. And the way I met Ciannie was at one of our BRG meetings. And I was so impressed by her, first of all, because we're both Boricuas. And there weren't many of us in this organization. And I remember her presenting at our BRG meeting, and her story just resonated so deeply with me. And I was so impressed by her because not only was she our Brooklyn location, was it Brooklyn? Elizabeth, sorry, I knew it was one of the North stores. Elizabeth store manager at the time, but she was the only female, Latina female to be in that role. So as a female and a Latina in my organization, I felt myself seen and heard with her story, and she has done such an amazing job with that store, but also now in her new role with driving the DE&I efforts here at the country level in Ikea, and really giving our coworkers space of inclusivity and having them feel seen and heard. So thank you for inviting me in this chat with you today, Ciannie. It's such a pleasure to share this space with you. So welcome me and welcoming Ciannie to the stage.
Thank you. And as we kind of take this this chat through what our journey was, do you want to talk a little bit about what your journey was?
Yeah, absolutely. So my journey started at Ikea over 13 years ago, and I started as a local marketing specialist in our South Philadelphia store. And I always knew that I wanted to be in some type of leadership or manager role in this organization. I think I noted at the top of the call that there wasn't many, Latinas that looked like me in leadership roles, and I knew I wanted to change that. That's just always been in my DNA. And so I started to just really make connections at Ikea, networking, but I wasn't really making movement, and I was starting to doubt myself. And so not until I really became intentional about what I wanted in this organization and really becoming an advocate for myself was when I really started to see movement and doors open and opportunities. So, from that moment on, I knew, hey, you know what, I'm my own advocate. I really need to let people know what I want to do in this organization. And when I started to do that, I noticed a lot of movement happening for me. So what would you say was your journey here at Ikea?
Well, I actually started 30 years ago.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that long ago.
I have been with the organization 30 years. And I actually started as a part-time coworker in high school. And last week I was traveling and going to different locations. And one of the icebreakers, they asked, do you remember your first day? What was intro like? And I'm like, oh my goodness, 30 years. Wow. Do I really know what my first day was? But the one thing that really stuck out on my first day is the person giving the intro was gave us the meaning of what coworker is at Ikea. And we're not called employees, we're called coworkers. And the reason we're called coworkers is us as individuals are partaking and co-creating and collaborating in growing the business. And I was like, wow, as a teenager in a company
Right.
that I will be part of co-creating the business. And they really talked about our values and how strong it was, and that really resonated with me. And then my first day, my first few months within the organization, I caught my manager in the office, and she was working on the P&L, and I was just like, wow, what are you doing? So profit and loss statement as a teenager. She's like, oh, come on, let me show you. And in the earlier session, Pierre was talking about curiosity, and that absolutely is one of the main drivers of my career here at IKEA is be curious. So when I asked, here she is teaching me about profit and loss and what it does, what it takes to run a business. Within my 30 years at IKEA, I've had significant milestones that I really can call out that really have helped me grow, not only as a woman within IKEA, but also as a Latina. And I've had some great managers that have sponsored me, that have kind of pushed me a little, prodded me into taking those steps that I was a little afraid of taking, especially when we talk about, being Puerto Rican and in families big, being together, having your family around you, and that fear of just, okay, what are my next steps? And some of my next steps had to be to move across the country to different states. In 5 years, I've worked in 5 different locations. I've had the privilege of being the store manager in the Elizabeth store. And now as the ED&I manager in the US, it's such a great opportunity to be able to share my story, and then also to uplift those around me.
What a beautiful story. I don't think I knew it was that robust in 30 years at IKEA. And I love that you speak about curiosity, because that is something that is encouraged here in the organization. And the more curious you are, you are exposed to so much that you don't even realize you're going to be exposed to, and what doors that could open and what opportunities that could afford you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think about now who I am today. So 30 years ago, what would I say to my younger self? What would you say to your younger self?
Gosh. You know, I was just thinking about this the other day. I saw a TED Talk with America Ferrera. She was younger, just getting off the show of Ugly Betty. And it resonated so deeply with me because she talked a little bit about this. And it made me, think and think about what would I say to myself. And I think for me, it was really about trusting my instincts and embracing my bicultural self. I think that's something that I hid away, or shied away, not hid, but shied away from, just to fit the mold, right? And I think, being a Latina is one of my superpowers. It's to be Latina is a superpower. And you'll come across people and systems that don't understand the importance of diversity. And I think, don't let that fear fit you into a box and into a mold. And in fact, I say break the mold, and it's really important for me that my voice, to understand that my voice matters, especially in this organization. And so, my younger self, I would say, trust your instincts, be true to who you are, because being a Latina, bicultural Latina, is a superpower. Lean into that. And not only when you have the seat at the table, but for others, be the voice for others that, may not have that seat at the table. How about you?
I love that. I know that when we first met, I told you the story of when I first applied to be a leader within this organization. I had a friend, or who I thought was a friend, tell me to, you need to straighten your hair, you need to wear a certain type of makeup, and I conformed. And so it really resonates with me of like being who you are as a Latina is a great place with colorful lipstick, curly hair. We speak with our hands. But what I would tell my younger self that I've learned in the last few years, and I think I still have to ingrain it into my head, is that take the moments. I've had 15 roles within Ikea, and I always made a list of criteria that I felt that I had to achieve
Yeah.
before I gave myself permission to go to the next step. And that held me back. It could have been fears of the unknown. Some of it had to do with the insecurities I had and imposter syndrome. But I'm curious for you. Do you have moments like that?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Imposter syndrome is something that I'm constantly checking, you know. I think being one of the only, members in my family to have graduated college and move on and have a career, I have a lot riding on my shoulders. I think about, setting the tone for my children, but also, just being paving the way for a lot of our Latino coworkers in IKEA, is what we're doing here. And the work that we're doing is really important. And I think for me, imposter syndrome hit me the hardest when I was launching the Spanish language website. That was a big deal for us in the organization. There were many times where I started to believe, hey, you know what, I just don't think I'm the right person or cut out for this. But I knew how important opening this access point for our Hispanic consumers was. And I stayed rooted in that. And I reminded myself that, hey, you know what? I'm here for a reason. I'm here for a reason. And it's because I understand this audience truly and deeply. And I leaned in on those analytics. I leaned in on the team. And I leaned in on the community, understanding that I was representing a whole community of folks and doing something really great. So, when I do come across imposter syndrome, I do try to remind myself that I earned my space and I'm here for a reason. And I try to lean in on that in those moments of doubt and insecurity. I think it's something that we all deal with. Would you say it's something you deal with in your day-to-day or?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can think of many examples, but the biggest one that is so close to my mind is when I spent many years on the retail side of the business. So during COVID and having to open the stores back up, I was very confident in my competence when it came to selling furniture. I can sell furniture and an experience when it came to the store, but to really have to take a step back and ensure the safety of my coworkers and my customers. There were days that it's just because you had to make these quick decisions, and it's like, am I prepared for that? Am I making the right decision? And the beauty of taking a look back and really assessing that time is that I really leaned into my values that were so connected to the values of IKEA, because as you know, we at our company, we lead by the heart. It's always business, but the heart is first. We really want to ensure a better everyday life for the many, of course. And that was, I agree with you, the community out there. So I had the opportunity to have some fantastic peers that were going through the same thing. So other store managers, we were able to share our fears, our insecurities, our ideas, because it was a brand new world and trying to navigate in this unknown, and was just frightening, but then also exciting because we were able to do so much innovation in the last few years. So the Spanish language website for me was a cherry on top of what I have seen this company do in the last 30 years, from starting, I was in the second oldest location of IKEA, and it opened in 1986, to now having a Spanish language website and advertisements and all the things that were and more of what you're working on is just such a privilege.
Yeah, the commitment, I could say, to the ED&I community is truly, intentional in this organization. And it's not just, driven by marketing and advertising. I talk about this a lot. I know you've heard me say this. It is truly a enterprise-wide effort here at IKEA. And, you know, it starts with us internally and our coworker base and making sure that, you know, we are investing in equitable and inclusive environments for our coworkers, and then also externally for our customers, and making sure that even in our units, it reflects those markets, because, you know, that's important to our customers and it's important to our coworkers too. So I think the commitment is what also gives me the drive to do what I do on a daily basis as a Latina leader in this organization. And speaking about being a Latina leader in this organization, how would you say, Ciannie, that you're using your platform as a highly visible Latina leader at IKEA to help pave the way for future leaders?
That's such a great question, because, you know, I growing up in this company, it wasn't something that I set out to do to pave the way. In this role specifically, being the equity, diversity, and inclusion manager, it's about telling the story. We have lots of data that we have. How do we connect our data results to improving the coworker experience and also improving the customer experience? And a lot of the work that we do comes with how are our recruitment processes, what are our succession processes look like? We need to start to build the bench to see underrepresented groups shine and be able to reflect local society at IKEA US. That's our mission by 2027. We hope to management will reflect local society. And in the work that we do as an ED&I team, it's how do we educate, how do we motivate, and how do we pave the way so that policies and processes are there to provide an equitable approach to the men.
And I think that that's most important, right? Is educate and motivate. Those two are so important, because, you know, we could operate from I believe this is where we are in our organization versus, no, this is what the data is telling us. I love that your team is constantly, you know, coming to our department meetings or presenting in our leadership meetings on where we are in terms of diverse leaders in our organization, really holding us accountable. And I think that's so important, because to your point, it is about educating, creating that awareness, because once that awareness is created, then you can start to motivate for action planning and be super intentional. And I think for me, it's about that intentionality as a Latina leader in this organization and how I carry myself in my day-to-day. I'm always thinking about the privilege that I have to have that seat at the table, and in anything that we're working within, I'm making sure that we're thinking about succession planning and we're thinking about diverse pipeline. And I'm always thinking about, okay, who am I sponsoring today? Because we understand, you know, Pierre spoke a little bit about this in the earlier session, was sponsorship. And I think that's super important. You know, mentorship is important, but sponsorship is even more crucial, because they're going to be the ones advocating for you and speaking up for you when you're not in the room. Right?
Totally agree. I think that one of the things that a lesson in life, I think what's important is that you also have to find those sponsors. Make that space, find the people that have the voice and are able to influence, and take a meeting with them, take a coffee. We call it fika, having a cup of coffee to be able to connect, and so that you're seen, especially if you don't have the natural sponsor see you. You should absolutely make the way to find one.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's when I became super intentional about my career, I spoke a little bit about advocating for myself. I think those two things go hand in hand, is the sponsorship and you know, advocating for yourself. You know, when I started to really speak what I wanted to happen in my career and be very clear on what I was looking for, and really identifying folks in the organization that I felt, you know, could play that role for me, be a sponsor. I actually wasn't scared to ask, you know, would you would you be willing to be a sponsor for me? But I think some of that you have to prove yourself, right? Because you do put yourself out there. So I think, you know, if there's takeaways for today, you and I were reflecting and talking about this prior to the call, like what were the two things we want to leave folks with? And those were the two that we felt were so important in navigating your career and really taking it, you know, as the title of this session is called, is, you know, just paving your own way, finding your sponsors, and advocating for yourself, being very clear on what you want in your career and what you can bring. You know, what are your transferable skills and skill sets that you're bringing to the table? Would you add anything to that?
Yeah, well said. I don't know if I would, the other thing that I would add is don't allow the barriers or that you put in place hold you back. We talked about this a little bit yesterday of a lot of Latinos take that I am a hard worker, I'm going to just do my job and wait to be tapped on the shoulder for the next steps. And that's not always the case. We come with competence and leadership, and ensure that you know that the next steps can happen even if you haven't finished that 101 goals that you set for yourself within your current role. Take that leap, move forward. I said to be, you know, to be bold in yourself.
I love when you said that, be bold.
Yeah.
I love that. I think, yeah, and we talked a little bit about like when you're going for another role or you're going for a role, you may not meet every single qualification that's listed, but you know what you bring to the table and feel confident in that. And, you know, go for that role and challenge yourself, because if you wait till you can check off every single thing to qualify for that role, you're going to be waiting around, you know, for a long time. And that next person that was bold and went for it is going to get it. So, you know, believe in yourself, push yourself, don't stay in your comfort zone, find yourself, your sponsors, and be a sponsor for someone.
Yes.
That's so important. Be someone's sponsor and always advocate for yourself, because if you don't do it, who else is going to do it for you?
Absolutely. I think we have some time for questions, if anyone has any questions.
Okay.
Can you talk about the CRGs?
Yeah, absolutely. So CRGs for us is our coworker resource groups. At Ikea, we actually have 7, which is fantastic. We have weekly meetings where the coworkers, it's led by the community, by the coworkers, and weekly meetings to uplift and to really connect. So part of each CRG, we have, they have different lanes of focus. Some is mentorship, some is financial wellness. Some we have CRGs that are focused on disability inclusion, and they veterans served and serving. So we have quite a robust CRG, and it's growing. We have executive sponsorship. So we have 2 executive sponsors per group, and they are completely involved. And what they do is they take their, they use their platform to ensure that the CRGs get tons of participation and support when it comes across the business. So you'll see that we have the CRGs are represented by months of emphasis. So not only is it internal communications and activities and support, but it's also connected to our business activities for our consumers.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to have that executive sponsorship, because it goes back to the commitment that we have in the organization, enterprise-wide. You know, these are folks who sit in executive leadership positions, and they are advocating for our CRGs and advocating for an inclusive workplace. And we really much appreciate our CRGs, and we continue to grow. And they have become a space where we can learn. I mean, you don't have to be of a certain community to attend the CRGs. And I mean, we get countless coworkers reaching out about how much they learned about a certain community or about a certain topic. So I think it's about creating awareness so that we can continue to build our allyship internally and externally.
And I have to say, Jessica is our chair for Fuerza, which
Yes.
is our Hispanic and Latino
Yes,
CRG group. So
Proud.
I'm
proud
so
to
happy
hold that seat.
she has accepted the role.
Yes.
And yeah, so it's she definitely walks the talk and really leans into the spaces where she can show up in the community. And that's amazing.
Thank you, Ciannie. And honestly, as I said when I introduced you, you were one of the only Latina leaders when I first joined IKEA, and you impacted me so much. You really helped me in this organization become the leader that I am today. So it was an honor to share this space with you today. You're an incredible powerhouse, leading the efforts here for Edie and I, and making sure that we all feel seen and heard. So thank you for everything you do for us.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure to share this. We're actually in a sofa.
Yes, in our studio. We
in our
actually
studio.
have here at our corporate office in Conshohocken, Pennsylvania, we have a studio. So we really do hope that you got some good gems today and feel empowered to be an advocate for yourself and find your sponsor and be a sponsor for someone.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you so much. I love that you're on an IKEA sofa.
Yes, we're in the IKEA studio. Yes, all IKEA.
The ladies from IKEA on the IKEA sofa. Did you bring an Allen wrench? Are you prepared?
They're always around.
Thank you so much. Everyone have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Have a good one.